Hi everyone, welcome once again to our beautiful JNF Forever Family Zoom meeting. Hopefully on Sunday we can get some little bit more positive news moving forward from our premiere. I am desperate for the hairdresser and not to mention the overgrown nature strip weeds. It looks like there's a homeless person here, so hopefully there'll be some great news and things will open up a little bit. But the only consistent and holistic contingent, I hope, is that our JNF Forever events have been here for everybody. And I personally have really thoroughly enjoyed them, from sourcing the guests to hosting, and most importantly, learning and listening to so many wonderful, different and inspiring people. I've absolutely loved it. You all know the in-house rules by now, so we've got everybody on mute. You're welcome to type in questions in the chat box, but there will be time afterwards for questions at the end. So there's always, you can put your hand up at the end. You all know me by now. I'm Jackie Chait, the Legacy Manager for JNF Victoria, and that leaving a bequest is an incredibly meaningful and benevolent thing to do and to consider for generations to come. So I'm always available for a chat and a coffee. This week we will not disappoint. We have joining us live from Israel, the sensational Daphne Ben-Nun. I would like to thank Tammy Cohen from our JNF team for recommending this great lady. Thanks, Tammy. So Daphne is a passionate, award-winning wildlife photographer. She travels the world in search of unique wildlife in their natural habitat. Combining her photographs with lectures, she helps raise awareness for endangered wildlife, as well as teaching about the environment from a photographer's point of view. Daphne will speak of her journeys and experiences from behind the camera. She will take us on an adventure around the world and explain how she ended up in places such as China, the North Pole, Antarctica, Africa, and our very own Tasmania. When I asked Daphne how she chose this path, she explained that as a child, they moved around a lot due to her father's work. Until about grade 6, they were rarely in the same place for more than a year. So as a consequence, she struggled to make lasting friendships and developed a love and connection to nature and seeing the world behind the camera lens. And this she could take with her wherever she went. After completing the army, she filmed and videoed the entire year and realized that 80% of her end product were of animals, and that this was more of a passion and hobby. It was more than a passion and hobby. It was to be her career and her livelihood. She then studied visual arts, video photography, and editing, and things developed from there. It is from the heart, and she makes extra money doing children photography, she will show you, which helps pay for her travels. She has a wonderful husband and twins aged 5, I think she said 5. Daphne's photos have won several prizes, amongst them the National Geographic International competition, and her photos were exhibited in the prestigious National Geographic exhibition in Korea, and she has her own column in the Israeli Nat Geo Kids magazine. And just before we start, just to mention that some of the footage Daphne will show is a little graphic and confronting, but that is nature, and she will talk you through it. So over to Daphne.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here, and I do apologize in advance if my English is not perfect. And I really encourage questions. We will have time for that at the end. Unfortunately, in the Zoom, it's difficult. So as Jackie said, actually until the age of 12, 13, we traveled around the world and actually lived in Perth for 4 years as a part of our traveling. And I have Australia deep in my heart. So I'm extra excited to talk to you guys. I'm gonna take you with me around the world, showing you my passion. And when people ask me why I do what I do, I don't have an actual answer aside from this is what I feel I need to be doing, and this is what my heart leads me to do. So I want to start with a video just showing a little bit of of the things I do, and then I'm going to start talking. So I'm going to share, just a second, share my screen. Okay, everyone can see? Okay, so that was just a little tasting. There we go. That was just a little tasting of what I do. And I just want to talk about the mess behind me. As Jackie was saying, I'm a wildlife photographer, but I'm also a children and family photographer. So this is my props. So this is my life. This is how my head works. A lot of mess. So I want to take you with me to 6 destinations around the world. And when I decide on a destination, I choose a wildlife, an animal that I'm interested in, and I do the research and I contact experts to learn everything needs to be learned about the animal, the environment, and how I can approach it as close as possible in its natural habitat. It's very important for me to do this in the natural habitat and not zoos, because as a wildlife photographer, I want to be very authentic with the pictures and the images that I take, and not to have anything influence the animal and its behavior. So the first animal that I want to take you and show and talk about is the giant pandas in China, which is actually the only animal in our trip today that is not in the actual wild, because in the wild there are less than 2,000 individuals, and they're very territorial, very aggressive, and it's impossible to find them in the wild. And if I wanted to learn about the animal, I had to go to the breeding centers in China to learn about them. So I went twice. I traveled twice to China, and it was very important for me to learn why is this animal so intriguing, and why are people so in love with this animal. And these are just a few facts about the animal. And I'm going to show you what I learned about it through my experience. So in order to photograph the giant panda, I flew from Israel to Beijing, and from Beijing to Chengdu, which is, this is the center of the pandas in the world. And actually all pandas in the world, they belong to China. And if there's a country that wants to rent a panda to their zoo, it costs $1 million to rent a panda. And if that panda has babies, had cubs, it still belongs to China. And that's very interesting. They I think the Chinese people, they realized how economical pandas can be, and they're not really. I don't think China is really interested in wildlife or nature, but when they understand that it can bring them a lot of money, so that then they put all the effort in making sure that the pandas won't be extinct. So when I arrived to Chengdu, I went to 5 different breeding centers. And the first time I went there, I went to volunteer for 2 weeks. And this is the view from my window. They put me in this little hut. I don't know, it wasn't even a hostel, it was just a little, uh, this is the toilet. And actually I had a cold, so lucky I couldn't smell it because, well, where the pandas were staying was much cleaner than where I was. I got a tag and I got a suit and I started working. And what you usually do when you work with the pandas is clean their poop and feed them. That's the main thing. But I wanted more. I wanted to learn. So, and the guy that was instructing me what to do there, he wasn't very friendly, and he kept behaving like he doesn't understand English. Only 2 days before I finished my volunteering, I realized that he does understand English, just didn't want to help me. But I got my information from everyone around there, so I, I'm going to explain what I learned. So this is the night quarters of the pandas. They have a really big area because, as I was saying, they're very territorial. They need a very big place to live in, and each panda, the adult pandas, they have their own separate place. This is what we do all day. Very high technology, as you can see. And each panda eat 35 kilos of bamboo a day. And pandas are, well, they're so different from any other bear because they're vegetarian. But I understood that recently they decided that they are pandas, that they considered to not call them bears, sorry. Pandas are now considered to be bears, even though they're vegetarian. And they eat bamboo, and this is baby bamboo, and they love it as treat. They have panda bread, which is vitamins, and each panda has to have the exact amount. They're very strict about the amount of food that they get there. And carrots also. As you can see, the panda is holding uh, the bars, and this is how they teach them to eat, because I was told that there was a guy that was taking care of the pandas there, that he got his hand ripped off by a panda because they're very aggressive. So they're very cute, but very aggressive and very strong. So they teach them to hold the bars. So as I was saying, pandas that are born abroad are brought back to China, and they have a special place there where they teach them how to behave around people. This is the kindergarten. When you see more than one panda, usually they're babies, they're cubs, and these are 1-year-old, and they're very cute. And so I wanted to know about why are they becoming why are they endangered and becoming extinct. So I was told that when they are born, they're born 100 grams, like rats, helpless, and the mother has to hold them on her hand for 3 months straight until they become independent. So and usually like 50% of the births are twins, but in nature the mother has to choose one of them. She chooses the strongest one, and then the other one dies. So what they did in captivity, they actually save both of the twins. These are 3 months year old, three, and what they do is they take one of them, they leave one with the mother. They have a 24-hour camera making sure that the mother is taking care of the baby. And then they, well, pandas are not a very intelligent animal. They bring food next to her nose. She just turns around and then they swap the baby so that she takes care of, and both of the babies survive. This is how in just a few years they managed to double the amount of pandas in the world. But that said, they're all in captivity. They're trying to release them to the wild, but it's very problematic because, as I was saying, they're very territorial. So they tried to release a female, and then they realized later on that she was killed by another panda. So the biggest enemy actually for a panda is pandas. So I really don't know if they'll be able to release them to the wild, because I don't think there's enough wild areas left. Even though China is huge, they need a big territory with bamboos, and you know, they need their the basic things to survive, and I don't think there's enough territory for them. So for now, they're in places like these breeding centers and zoos, and they're surviving. But you know, unfortunately, there's not enough wild territories for them. And they're very, very cute, but now very intelligent, as I was saying. And I just had such a great time photographing them in the breeding centers. And I really wanted to go in and photograph and take photos of them really close, and to be able to have photographs taken with them, which is not an easy task with the Chinese, as you understand. They're not very cooperative, but I'm persistent. And eventually they allowed me to go in for a few minutes. It wasn't easy, but I did it. So usually I have now, if you want to ask questions, so you can write it down, and then Jackie will ask me the questions later, and we'll have time for more questions. So I want to take you to the next location, which is the Pink River dolphins in the Amazon. So I heard that there were pink river dolphins. I heard that there were pink dolphins first time that I was intrigued by this animal, and then I understood that they're in the Amazon in South America. And I said I have to go and see them and photograph them. But as the more I learned about them, I understood that it's more difficult to see them because they don't have a back fin, and the water is very murky, and it's very difficult to find them in the wild, even though they're not endangered, but they're very elusive. So I traveled I decided as a part of my trip to Brazil, I'm going to dedicate a big part of it in searching the pink dolphins. So I flew to Rio de Janeiro, and from there to Manaus, which is the capital of the Amazon. And on that flight, luckily I sat next to this really, really nice woman, and I just started talking to her and saying that I'm a wildlife photographer and I want to try and photograph the pink river dolphins. And then she said that there's a little village that I need to take a bus from Manaus, and if I'm lucky, I'll find her. And she's known to feed them the wild dolphins, and they come up to her boat, and I should look for her. So I wrote down the name of the place. I landed in Manaus. I went to the bus station and bought a ticket to that place. I didn't know it was like a 6-hour drive into the, you know, into the Amazon forest, but I didn't care. Uh, I was so astonished by the views and And you know, the nature there is just wild and amazing. And I just I just love being in the rough parts of the world and meeting the people there and seeing the animals I have outside the door or on my pillow. um, but then when arriving to that place, actually they don't speak English obviously there, and I don't speak Portuguese. But the people are very friendly in the countryside, in the villages. So I just wandered there and asked people I said, "Dolfinos, dolfinos, just anything, just show me where this woman is." And they were really friendly, and they helped me, and they just showed me the way. And I approached the riverbed, and there was this like deck from a boat, and I went in and I saw this lady, and I said, like, "Dolfinos," and she went like, "Wait a minute." She left. She came back with a plate of fish, and she was sitting on the water, and then she just put the fish in the water, and then suddenly these two beautiful dolphins jumped up, and I was so excited. I said, bring on the fish, I'm staying here." And then she just brought plates of fish, and I was just sitting there and feeding them and photographing them. And they're not as beautiful as the bottlenose dolphins or the common dolphins, but they're amazing and very intelligent and very friendly. And like I was sitting there with the legs in the water, and they just came up to my legs, and they just just tugged me, and I couldn't help it. I just had to jump in with them. It was just I had to do that. And it's not a zoo, and it's not a trapped animal. The animal was there because it wanted to be there. It could any minute just swam off, and I was just, it was, when I'm with a wild animal that is not afraid of me, it's just, for me, it's like being next to a famous person. I'm just so excited and so honored. It's difficult for me to explain the feeling. So after this exciting experience, I remembered that that lady said on the plane that there's also manatees, and then I saw a photo of a manatee there, a painting of a manatee, and I asked the people, where can I see that? And then and I kept saying like that, like, I can't see it, and I didn't understand. But then I remembered that she said that there's a place in Manaus where they help manatees, and I didn't really understand then what she said, and but then I flew back to Manaus, and I went to that place, and it was like a zoo, and I'm not a big fan of zoos, but as I understood that this zoo, it helped wildlife. So I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to photograph behind the scenes. So I paid entrance fee, and I went in, and then they attached me a young boy, a local boy, which obviously didn't know English. So I tried to explain, I'm a photographer. I want to photograph the animals behind the scenes, not just to go around the zoo. He didn't understand what I wanted from him. So he left, and then this adult came to me and started to take me through the zoo. And I said, no, I don't want a tour around the zoo. I want to photograph behind. I wanted to learn about the animals. He didn't understand what I wanted from him. He left, and then this woman came, and I said, like, I was desperate. I said, I'm a photographer from Israel, and I want to photograph the animals. And then she answers in Hebrew, and she says, I live here. I'm married to a local guy for 15 years now. I'm in charge of the Manatees Project. Come in. So that was really exciting. And she led me in behind the scenes, and she was telling me and teaching me about this project that they're doing, which is actually really sad. There are different kinds of manatees around the world, and this specific manatees is the Amazon one. and it's really endangered because the Amazon people, they kill it for the meat to sell. You know, that they don't really care about rules. They do whatever they want there. So she said that what they do is they catch the babies, they tie it to the boat, and then they kill the mother because the mother swims after the baby. And what they do over there is they have all the babies there in pools. This is the baby. If you can see the tiny eye there, they don't see very well. They use their whiskers to feel. They're very harmless animals, very gentle. As you can see, there are a few pools there. Every pool has like between 2 or 3 little babies, and then they release them back into nature. But she wasn't very optimistic, unfortunately. But that was a really exciting experience, and actually the fact that they allowed me to feed them, and he fell asleep on his back, so that was that was cute. And it was really well, it was interesting and sad to hear the stories. And then I told her that I really wanted to photograph sloths, and it was difficult just to approach them close in nature there in the Amazon forest itself. And then she said, "Okay, come with me." We crossed the road, and there was the university there, and we went into the university. I had no idea where she's taking me. And I was walking after her, and then we went into the rooms there, and you know, into the labs, and then suddenly between the shelves, this is what I see. And apparently there's a sloth living in the university there. They rescued her like 12 or 15 years ago, and she just lives there. And I didn't know what to say. Well, obviously that's not the wildlife I was expecting to photograph, but it was just a funny story that I love to share. So this is the end of the Brazil section, and now I'm going to take you to Tasmania, which is well, I don't know how many of you know that the Tasmanian devil is really endangered. There's a very aggressive face cancer disease that they're suffering from, which is very rare. It's transferred by saliva, and they're working on understanding how it works. I think in the last few years they started to understand and to learn how to treat it. So hopefully they won't be extinct, because they're very important for the ecology, and because they eat all the roadkills, and they prevent epidemics and diseases, and it's very important. Unfortunately, they're only in Tasmania in the wild, and they're very important animals. And once I heard about this awful disease, I said I have to go there and to photograph healthy individuals in the wild. So as a part, again, of a big trip that I did with my husband to Australia for a month, I started off with going to Tasmania. This is how I planned my trip. So I contacted a devil's expert and talked to him about wanting to photograph them. And he said there's a hideout where he can take me and I could photograph them, and he'll teach me everything I need to know. I was very excited, and I booked all my trips, all the flight tickets, the camper van, everything according to his convenience and his dates. And I was very excited, and everything was ready. And a week before my flight, I got an email saying that this man passed away. So now I've got these tickets going to Tasmania. I have no idea where I'm going, and I was so stressed. But I remembered that in one of the emails, he was saying that there's another expert that if I was lucky, he'll have the time to answer a few of my questions. So I quickly emailed him saying that I'm desperate and I'm coming over in a week and I really, really need his help if it's possible. So I flew over to Tasmania. And as you know, this is a Tasmanian devil. This is a graphic image. I'm just going to show quickly how the cancer looks like, okay? It's awful. That's it. But it's very important for me to raise this awareness to people who don't know about it. And well, now I'm going to show you a video, which is in Hebrew, so I'm going to translate, about my experience coming to Tasmania and meeting Nick, who happened to be the #1 expert on Tasmanian devils in the world. So I was really lucky that he had the time to help me. And he took me to, I'm going to explain now so that you could focus on the video. He took me to this private house, which they have in the backyard. They have devils coming in. And he brought with him roadkill, which is also a little bit graphic. And he taught me how to pin them down because this is their bait. This is what they eat. And he said that he helped me arrange the hideout, which was my camper van. You're going to see that shortly. And I had a light with a dimmer, and I waited for them to approach the roadkill. So Nick Mooney, I didn't know that he was #1 expert when I arrived there. And the private land where I photographed belonged to a really nice old British couple. This is Nick. And he was teaching me everything I needed to know about the devils. He's very passionate about it, and he works really hard to rescue them. This is a cub that he found in a pouch and his mother was run over by a car. And he taught me that in order to feed them, he has to cover their eyes because they're nocturnal. So we had to it was raining that day on top of everything. So we had to make sure that when I'm photographing out of the window, the rain won't interfere with the camera gear. So I had to get everything ready. And by that time, my husband fell asleep. It was like 2 a.m. And I just kept him, wake up! And then they arrived. And it was amazing for me. It was really exciting being able to see them healthy and living in front of my camera. So this is by the next night he brought me 2 roadkills, and he said, okay, the next night I won't be able to help you, so you have to pin it down. Well, being a vegetarian, it was something that I couldn't. Well, I tried. I did it like with my eyes closed, and then the first devil that came that night just took everything and ran away. And I said, okay, we can go to sleep, and that was the end of the night. So I was lucky to have had that night that I could see them and learn about them. And he was saying that the healthy individuals that he rescues, they transfer them to an island where they can have healthy devils there, make sure that they don't have the disease. I'm really looking forward to hear that they know how to treat it, and that they won't be endangered anymore. So that was the devils. I'm going to the next location, polar bears. So I really wanted to photograph polar bears, but not from a boat. I wanted to be on the ground facing them as as close as possible. And I heard that there's a place in Canada where I could do that. So I flew to Manitoba, to Winnipeg, and from there to Churchill, which is something like this. This is like Churchill. So there's a little bit of snow there. And from there, we had to take another flight with helicopters or planes to a lodge, which is in the center of the bear's natural habitat. So it means that we are in the cage and the bears are surrounding us like this. And it's, well, the bears there, the guides there, they try to educate the locals not to be intimidated by the bears, because they're, you know, people are in their natural habitat, and they're in their environment. So obviously when they're hungry, they smell the food and then they come into town, into Churchill. While I was there, I heard that there was a bear in Churchill, and well, it could go in two ways when a bear enters the town. Uh, they if a bear attacks a human being, it means that they're not scared of human beings anymore, so they have to be put down. But if the bear is scared, which they taught us that when you see a bear approaching you, then you have to do a lot of noise and behave like you're not scared of him and pretend you're bigger than him. And because bears are the strongest animal there, they get confused, and they're very intelligent animals comparing to the panda bears. So they do the calculation saying, okay, if this animal is not scared of me, that means it could hurt me. If I'm hurt, if I break a tooth or if I break a nail, it means I can't hunt and I can't eat. So they prefer not to encounter an animal that could attack them. But if they go into town, which is a different habitat for them, and they get stressed and they attack, then they get killed. But the bears that are scared and they're in town, they catch them. They put them in like a prison, a bear prison, and they mark them with a green X on their back, and then they take them with a helicopter and they fly them over as far as possible, and they release them. So they work really hard there to educate people to live amongst those animals, because it's important to understand. You know, wildlife, they behave in a certain way to survive. They're not interested in attacking people just for fun, and it's very important to understand that. So the bears were around the lodge there, and they're very curious, and obviously they can smell the food there, and we were taught that every time where they get really close, we have to like throw little rocks onto their feet to keep them away, not to hurt them, obviously. They're like 3 meters high. They're very big and very impressive. But I didn't come to photograph bears, you know, from a fence. I wanted to see them. I want to face them. I want to see them in the wild, properly in the wild. So I went with a guide. He has a gun, not to shoot the bears, to scare them with a noise. But that's the last resort. First of all, you know, you do the noise, and then just throwing rocks at them, at their feet. And the gun is just in case. We never use it. And after walking and looking for the bears, we found one, and I was like 20 meters from him. And the guide was, they teach me about their behavior. So once you understand, once you have an expert, and I always have experts with me, I never just go to the wild and, okay, now I want to photograph bears. It doesn't work like that, especially if I want to keep the animal safe and myself safe. So I've got an expert, a guide with me, teaching me about the animal's behavior, especially when it's a predator. And only then I can get images like that. And I could see the bears, they walking back and forth to see if there's, if they could hunt from the icebergs. They were waiting for the icebergs. They eat seals, and with the global warming, the problem is that the, the, the icebergs are melting fast, and they don't have where to hunt. So this is why they're not endangered yet. But if they won't have places to hunt, then they won't have food, and then they'll look for food in where we humans are, and then that's the main danger. So that was the polar bears. And moving on, going as south as possible to Antarctica, the emperor penguins. So I saw a photo of an emperor penguin. I said, this is what I want to photograph. I don't care what it takes. I want to photograph the emperor penguins. I had no idea how problematic that wish was. Well, they are the tallest penguins in the world. They live only on the mainland of Antarctica, opposed to other penguins which they live on islands around Antarctica. And I didn't care. I decided I want to photograph them. So I had to fly to Ushuaia, which is the southernest city in the world in Argentina. And from there, to take a 2 days cruise on an icebreaker on the roughest seas in the world, because there's no land that would stop the winds. So the boat just rocks to 45 degrees, and it's 2 days, which you get all everything is, all the boat is just, you know, chairs are flying, people are throwing up. It's great fun. And I had patches and the pills and everything. I think I was like the only one waking up for breakfast. And there's the beds in the little rooms. There's one going across and one going what's the word, like if you go in the direction, if you sleep in the direction of the boat, then you just rock sideways. But I was sleeping across the boat, so then my head was on the pillow and off the pillow the whole night. And going to the toilet is a whole different story. So that was 2 days like that. But then after those rough days, the sea became calmer, and then you started to see little icebergs and animals and penguins, and then the white desert started to appear. And this is the icebreaker, which is actually we were like 100 passengers and 200 crew, because it's such a big operation. I was on this cruise with a team of the BBC Frozen Planet. They were filming that at that time, and apparently these cruises are very rare, and you'll understand why soon. So, and then we started to see bigger and bigger icebergs until the boat, the icebreaker stopped, and they started building the helicopters on the deck. they couldn't build, they couldn't have it there built because of the rocking of the boat. So they had to build it after arriving to Antarctica. And then I was ready with my with my gear, everything, the clothes, the photography gear, the boots, the coats, the 100 layers, and I was just ready for them to tell me, okay, you can go in the helicopter and you can fly to see the penguins. And I was sitting like that for a week because the weather was well, you can't forecast the weather in Antarctica. It's just wild, and you can't fly with the helicopters when you have bad weather. So you just had to sit there and wait. And waiting is the worst thing that you can tell me to do. But I had no choice, so I was just sitting there and waiting. And then they said we can go. So it's a 15-minute flight. I was so excited. And then we landed in the base camp that the guides made there and started the 2-kilometer walk with snow up to our knees. And well, they had to land far from the colony in order not to interfere, and so that we had to do this walk. And I was so hot and exhausted by then. It was difficult. But then once you see the colony, just euphoria. I didn't feel anything. I was just so I was hyperventilating. I was just so excited. I just sat next to a group of penguins and started to learn their behavior. And you're not allowed to approach them more than 10 meters. But if they approach me, that means that they're not intimidated by me. So that's okay. So I was just lying there, photographing them, learning the interaction between the chicks and the adults. At one point, even identifying their voices calling each other. And then they approached me and they saw themselves in the lens. And that was really, really exciting. And after realizing that I'm not a threat to them, they went away. And then they came back with their chicks as if to show off. And I think that was the most amazing moment I had in that trip, and it's one of the best moments in my life. Understanding that they were like showing off their babies and their birds, so they were so human-like. And just sitting next to them and like having them invite me into their life, it's like nothing else I've ever experienced. And to see how the adults take care of the kids, they pamper them, the kids. I call them the kids because it felt like that, the chicks. They take really good care of them. They're like they have like a babysitter. They have a group of young ones and an adult taking care of them. And then I was sitting there. I arrived there in one of the first helicopter rides, and I was supposed to leave at one of the first helicopter rides, but I pretended not to hear them calling me because I had to stay there and photograph. And lucky I did, because I was there for 8 hours, and from the entire 2 weeks of this cruise, that was the only 8 hours I had with the penguins, because the next day the weather went bad again, and the boat, the ice breaker, was stuck in the ice, and it took the captain 4 days to crack the ice with the engines to get us out of there in time for our flights back home. So the entire, it could have gone even worse and not have even one day with good weather. This is why I was so lucky, and this is why there are hardly any cruises to see the emperor penguins. I had no idea back then how how lucky I was. And I was really upset at that time that, what, only 8 hours? I want to go there. I want to see them. I'm already here. But this is nature, and this is the roughest nature in the world. So this is the end of Antarctica. I'm going to take you to another very extreme location that wasn't easy as well to photograph. That was the beluga whales in the North Pole. And like in the emperor penguins, I really wanted to photograph beluga whales. But I didn't want to photograph them from a boat. I wanted to photograph them underwater. And I've been diving since I was 16. So I said, okay, so I'll dive and photograph them. What's the problem? Well, a lot of problems. I contacted a diving center in Russia in the North Pole. And I had to fly over to Finland, and from Helsinki to Lapland, Finland's Lapland, and then take a 7-hour van drive across the border to Russia, and then another hour of a big truck that could drive on deep snow, and then arrive to the lodge, which is on the edge of the White Sea. I'm standing here on the White Sea, and this is the diving center. And when I turned right, this is what I saw, the Northern Lights, and that was really exciting to have this on the first night there. And they have a little bit of snow there. And as you know already, I love snow and I love cold weather. Well, what I had to do in order to photograph beluga whales, I had to go through 2 diving courses. One of them is with a dry suit, because here in Israel or anywhere else in the world that I used to dive, the water temperature was nice. Like you could use a wetsuit and that was fine. But over there, the water is -2 degrees, the salt water. So I had to learn how to dive with a dry suit. A dry suit means I have like 4 layers of clothes, thermic clothes. Over that, I've got another all over my body is covered with another suit, and then you have the actual diving dry suit. The warm air inside the suit, that's what keeps me warm. And the problem is that I'm like a bubble. It's all air. So if when I dive, the angle of my feet is higher than my head, then it all pulls me up to the surface. So I had to learn how to control dive suit and the air that comes in. And we did exercises such as if the button that allows the air to come in, what if it gets stuck? It gets stuck from the ice, and then I get bloated from air, and then I'll get stuck under the ice, which diving in the ice means I'm going into a hole in the ice, and then we did an exercise of that. So I put a lot of air in my suit, and then I got stuck under the ice. Whoever is claustrophobic, that is not for them. And then you're attached to a guide outside the hole, and this is the way to communicate. And so I do a distress message, and then he pulls me out of the water. So like Spider-Man, I'm under the ice until I get out of the hole. And that was the dry suit experience. And then the actual ice diving course is to learn to communicate with the guy outside and to learn everything there's need to know. Diving under the ice and cave diving are the 2 most dangerous dives in the world. So I had to learn how to control that in order to go and photograph the beluga whales. So it looks like this. Getting all the gear ready, getting all the suits was so uncomfortable. And then you had the scooters, you get all the gear, the photography gear and the diving equipment on the scooters. And then after like a 15-minute drive on the White Sea, you arrive to little cabins. Each diver had a cabin number. They're heated up, and then you arrange the gear in the cabin. And then they take the cabin to your hole. So each diver has a hole number and a cabin number. And this is the hole. So the dry suit, my face is all, you know, nothing covers my face. So after like 30 seconds, I don't feel anything. It's 50 centimeters, the depth of the ice, and they just go in. And everything under the ice is green because of the sun rays. And I did all this in order to dive with the beluga whales, which was like nothing else I've ever did. These beluga whales are used to people there, so it's like the dolphins. They're being fed there, so they're not afraid of people. They're actually very friendly animals, even when they're not interacting with people in the wild. You know, when they're not used to people, like the penguins, they're curious. They approach people, but here they're really they're really friendly because they know people that are feeding them, so it's easier. So I was just playing with them, and they were playing with me, and they thought my camera was a ball, so they just pushed me to the to the ice. And at one point, when I wanted to go out of the ice, I felt like they were pushing me from my feet out of the water. It was just, they were playing with me, and as I was saying, I felt like I was amongst famous people. I was so excited and so honored. And after all this effort, you know, when you do, when I go out, this is wild. This is wild animals. So I can never know after all the effort if I manage to get a good photo. I could go do all this effort and not even get one single good shot. And by good shot, I mean something that internationally good, not something that it's nice to post on Facebook. My standards are really high, and if I want to call myself a professional wildlife photographer, I need to stand up to those to my own rules. So after spending all this effort and energy on learning all the technical stuff around, I have very little time for my actual art, for my actual photography. So because it costs a lot of money to do these things, and I don't always have the financial ability to stay as long as I want. So I need to be very focused on what I do. And in this trip, I'm not an underwater photographer. And this trip was a lot of underwater photography. And I learned everything while being there. I managed to get this image, which was on the BBC website, which is a lot of luck, getting this situation of an O-ring air bubble. And I got this image, which won the National Geographic Viewers' Choice Award international competition. And then they contacted me from Korea, from them. They said that they're doing an international exhibition, and they wanted this image. And they said, well, there's another image of yours that we're interested in, which is the emperor penguins one. Will we be able to buy it for the exhibition? I said, of course. And then I got an email saying that not only both of those pictures were in the exhibition, this photo was chosen to be on the poster of the entire exhibition. So uh, it's like a dream come true for a wildlife photographer, and I think that this is something that until this day I just I can't get my head around it, and I'm really honored. Um, well, since then I've been doing a lot of stuff. I've been writing a column for the Israeli National Geographic Kids magazine, and doing all sorts of stuff. But I think this is the first time that I actually understood that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is why all this effort is worth. And if I ask myself at the beginning, and people kept asking me, why do you spend so much money and so much effort on just traveling and photographing animals? You need to save up for your family and, you know, to have a proper job. And I didn't have an answer. I just said, this is what I know I have to do. I don't know why I'm doing this. I just know I need to do this. So I'm just summarizing it, what we've been through, and we traveled to 6 destinations to learn about different animals, different places in the world. And I want to show you just a short clip, a video clip for So this is well, this is the end, but I have another section of Africa. If you still have, if you still want to hear me.
What
So
there's a lot of questions. So for whoever, you know, we've pretty much gone over time today, but I always say to everybody, there's no time anymore. We're all at home, so whoever wants to stay, we've got a lot of questions, and Daphna's got a beautiful, which I would obviously love to see. I've got a sore mouth because I've been smiling for an hour, so thank you. um, there's amazing, there's a lot of questions, so whoever is happy to, you know, wants to listen, and I'll just read some of them for now, just and then you can
whoever wants to see about, I can show a little bit about Africa.
yes, so we'll do, I think let's do that after. There's just some questions here.
Sure.
Well, there's a lot of beautiful comments. One of them is your English is excellent, and everything, and asking about whether the events are recorded. But the one question is, are you fearless? Do you like other adventure other than looking for animals? In other words, are you just fearless, which clearly you are if you jumped into that tiny little hole in the ice?
Well, as I was saying, I've got my destination. I know what I want to get, and I do everything to get it. So, of course, it's terrifying for the first time to jump into the water, but I know I want to photograph the beluga whales, and nothing will stop me. And the fact that I'm working with experts, I always have someone who's in charge of safety for the animals, for myself. So I never do anything that's reckless. And this is something that when I teach photographers, I tell them, because usually a photographer thinks he's God. You know, I've got the camera, I can do whatever I want, especially Israeli photographers. So I tell them that you need to respect the animals, and if you want to get a proper, real photograph, you need the animals to behave naturally. But if you interfere in their natural habitat, they will never behave naturally. So it's all part of being a wildlife photographer to do it. Yeah, I do go to dangerous places, but I do everything in order to stay safe.
Okay. And then there was a question from Max. Max asked how you fund these expeditions. So I know part of it's the mush in the background, but you can.
Yeah, so this is how I fund it. I work very, very hard. In the beginning of my career, I was a video editor. I had a video editing business. And since my kids were born, I became a children and family photographer, which I do around the world, actually. I use it to fund my traveling. So I do like family photo shoots around the world in nature. So I actually do what I love, which is photographing in nature, and I combine it with my knowledge of children photography. And this is how I have my unique style of family photo shoots and children photography. I've got it
Amazing.
on my Facebook if you want interested in my website. So I've got well, actually, I've got two careers. I've got the children photography, which is called Wild Child by Daphna, and I've got my animal photography, which is called Wild World by Daphna, or Daphna Ben-Noon Photography, the same. And this is how I run my life.
Amazing. So what I may do is just get I'll get Bella to do the vote of thanks, but then we will after that go to the Africa segment, which I definitely want to see. But then whoever wants to stay can stay. So I'll just call upon Bella is the chair of our group, and she'll just thank you, and then we're going to definitely do the Africa part for whoever wants to stay on. I could have you.
And Daphne, that was just amazing. For people who are locked down and can't travel anywhere, thank you for taking us all around the world and for enriching our lives with that beautiful experience and those amazing animals, which some I've never heard of. And I learned a lot about panda bears. One of my grandchildren is very fond of panda bears, and I'll be able to tell her they're not as smart as she thinks they are.
They're just cute.
That was absolutely incredible. And pink dolphins, who would have ever thought of that? Thank you for sharing your wonderful experiences, your great depth of knowledge and understanding of wildlife. It's been a big eye-opener for me, and I've had a little person here helping me watch as well. So thank you again. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank you, Jackie, and the team at JNF for your diligence and persistence in keeping our meetings going. Sometimes it's been tough getting the right people and getting the times coordinated, but I take my hat off to you. You do an amazing job for our community. And thank you all for listening in.
And thank you, because you're part of it. So thank you so much. And then on that note, whoever wishes to remain, Daphne, please show us your bits on Africa.
Okay, I'm going on to Africa. I'm sharing the screen again. Yeah. Okay, so I don't have Africa as I have the rest of my presentation, because Africa is a whole story by itself, and there's so many wildlife there, which I didn't know on which animal I wanted to focus. So I did like a test drive. I said I'm going to Africa for 10 days just to feel the area. I went to Zimbabwe and Botswana. I have a very good friend there, and I studied, and her husband is a photographer, so he helped me a lot to understand what's going on there, and I was fascinated, and I got the Africa bug, and I've been there like 3 times since then, and just I don't know if you've been to Africa, but you feel like you're a part of nature, and that nature is so big. And for me as a wildlife photographer, it's very confusing, because I'm used to focusing on an animal, learning about it, and going and photographing it. And the first time in Africa, when you see all these animals and it's just I didn't know what to focus on. So I just decided I'm just letting it go, and I'm just photographing everything I see, and I'm learning on my own as I go. And this is how I learned about, for example, the vultures there, which is, they are as important as the Tasmanian devil in keeping epidemics and diseases by eating, the corpse of the animals. So there's a vulture restaurant there, which is usually they don't interfere with nature, but there's a big poachers problem there, where poachers, they killed the wildlife, the elephants and buffaloes and all. So what they do, the poachers, they poison the bodies, the corpse of the elephant, the buffalo, and then the vultures, they come, they eat, and they all die, because the poachers, they don't want them to tell on them while they're flying in the air. So they kill the vultures. So in order to keep the vultures safe, they have this vulture restaurant where they feed them once a day. And this is how they make sure that they keep they make sure that the vultures won't be endangered, and other animals as well. There are other birds. So that's an interesting story to learn. There are lots of beautiful birds. I'm not a bird photographer, but in Africa, I just couldn't help it. And well, this is a bushbuck, and this baby was born that morning, which I was very lucky to see, because they're very shy animals. But I was very close to where I was sleeping, so I was just sitting there and looking at the mother taking care of the baby. And I have no words to say how honored I am to have nature show me these beautiful scenes. And every time I see an animal, I just become so excited. I can never get enough of it. And Africa is really, I feel very spoiled in Africa. I can understand how every photographer wants to go to Africa, because I did the other way of building my career. Usually photographers, they start in Africa, so they see the animals. It's very easy to photograph them from the jeep, from the car. And then later on, if you want to become professional, then you go to the most distant places in the world. For me, it was the other way around. So this, for me, was like a piece of cake to photograph them so close and enjoy the nature, the rough and wild nature, really, really close, with hardly any effort. This is a jackal chasing away a vulture from a buffalo kill. This is the time where the elephants come to the river. This is a Zambezi River in Zimbabwe. They come to drink. They drink in hierarchy. What's the word? Hierarchy. The adults, the elderly, they drink first from the freshest water, and then they go back until down to the smallest and young one. So they really respect the elderly there. This is in the sunset. I was on a boat looking for the elephants crossing the islands, and it became the sun is already set, and we didn't find any elephants. And I was starting to be like disappointed that I won't get any photos that day. And then suddenly we saw this group of elephants, and we saw that they were going to cross the river. So we got the little boat set. So, and I got these beautiful sunset images. A different sunset image from Botswana. And another. And I've got an interesting story. After looking for elephants in the morning and the sunrise, I really wanted to photograph elephants drinking water with the sun rising behind them. But we didn't find the elephant that morning. But we did find a group of baboons, and I wanted to approach them. So I got off the jeep and I was walking really, really slowly. Like it took me like 15, 20 minutes approach them without interfering their behavior. And I was photographing those three, and then suddenly I heard screams from the right, and I turned around with my camera, and I took 2 clicks. This is the first one, and this is the second one. I'm going to the first one. This is a kidnapping. The mother is behind the termite's nest on the left, and this is what they do. They kidnap, they scream, they fight, they're very loud, the baboons. And this is apparently a normal behavior, but the fact that I managed to get this picture in 1 second of the kidnapping became very viral, resembling the Lion King scene. So it went viral all over the world, and it was just very, it was a nice, it's not, you know, as like the penguins shot that I was so excited of getting. This was just a very lucky shot, and it's just nice to have my photo all around the world in all the magazines and newspapers. And this is in a sanctuary where I went to photograph and learn about what they do there to help the wildlife, and they do a lot to help wildlife and to educate children and locals there. Thank you.
Jackie?
This has been my best day of lockdown ever.
Jackie, I just want to ask if Yafna knows our cousin Tzippi Rubenstein. She used to teach underwater photography to Israeli soldiers. Lives in Hertzpatuach.
The thing is, I'm so into my photography. I hardly know any other photographers because I'm so into my, you know, my aims, the things that I do. So usually, if I know photographers, is when they approach me and they talk to me, and then, well, actually now I was offered the, if you know Ziv Koren, the big photographer here in Israel. He's opening the biggest photography center here in Israel, which is going to be exhibitions and a school. And he chose me to be one of the core photographers team there to teach photography. So now I'm going to know more and more photographers here in Israel.
Well, she's my age group, but she used to teach photography to Israeli soldiers underwater for the docks
Really?
and shipyards and everything.
That's interesting.
Tzippi Rubenstein.
Well, you can tell her to contact me if she wants, and I'd love to talk to her. I believe that I can learn a lot from everyone. Like I'll never stop learning. So every time I talk to a photographer, I think I learned something from them.
Anyway, your work is thrilling because I watch National Geographic. All the times I recognize excellent quality when I see it, which is you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Anyone else? Last
How
question.
old am I? I was 40 last week.
I'd like to know, where did you learn photography?
But I must say that I'm 25 at heart. I learned photography in so many places. As I say, I keep learning. And well, after coming back from the trip after the army, which was to Australia, I learned in the Open University for 3 years, video editing, post-production, 3D animation, everything to do with visual arts in order to know what I want to do. And then I focused on video editing, and I opened my video editing company business, and I did that. But throughout the years, I understood that actual photography is my passion, and this is what I'm really good at. So it took me a few years to you know, concentrate on what I'm really good at and love what I do.
Because my brother is Hanan Laskin. He was the head of photography at B'Tzalel many years ago. Do you know Hanan Laskin at all?
No, I don't. But maybe if I see works, I usually identify photographers from their work, because I don't remember names or faces, but I do remember photographs. I've got my clients, which is sometimes is horrible that I don't remember them, but when I see their photos, oh yeah, I remember you. I've got I think this is why I became a photographer. I used the camera to see the world in a way that I can remember, and I could you know, experience it you know, better.
I think, okay, one more question and then we'll let poor Daphna.
No, I'm happy to answer, really.
This is the longest event we've ever had.
I'm so happy to hear that.
No one's going anywhere.
That's great. Just keep asking me. I'm happy. I'm used to having questions throughout the, you know, when I talk. So then I could, you know, read the crowd and know what to stay and to talk more about. This is, you know, it's more difficult through the Zoom where I can't see the people.
If there's anyone else want to know anything or ask anything, please unmute yourself. Otherwise, anyone? Joel?
Thanks, Jackie.
Harold?
It's been great. Great way to spend the afternoon in lockdown.
Absolutely.
We're going into a really strict lockdown soon as well, so I'm
No,
climbing.
you are. We're not.
So I was asked how I do that with the kids. Well, they have a father. This is why I keep him around.
I love it. Well, Daphna, if you're coming back to Australia anytime soon, please let us know. We can have you.
I really want to come back to Australia.
And
Do you have an assistant helping you take the pictures?
I can't afford one.
Sometimes when you are in the picture, who's actually...
Oh, I always, I have several cameras with me. So either I put it on a tripod or I give it to someone with me, because I always have like a guide with me who I never go by myself. So I always have someone with me that I ask to take a photo.
Thanks.
amazing. Well, thank you so much, everybody. So next week, we've got another guest from Israel. We've got, again, a fantastic speaker, Joseph Gittler, who started the Leket Food Bank. And that's a really, really, really going to be an interesting and amazing event. He will be also joining us live from Israel. So I'm loving that Zoom is connecting us to the rest of the world. I think that's very, very special, because we would never have been able to have Daphna. I don't think she would have flown all the way for one day unless we could produce.
Well, you could be surprised if you haven't known me by now.
I don't know if Australia's got as many animals, but we wouldn't have been able to.
Australia is my life. You know, I grew up there, so it's, for me, it's like coming back home. So, and I wanted to say that I'm working on a YouTube channel now, which is called Wild World by Daphna. I've got my first episode there, and it's in English. So I'm showing behind the scenes, every time a different animal. So I'm working on it now. So you can subscribe to it, and then when I post the videos there, you could see it.
All right, can you send me that information? Then I will send it out to everybody when we do our next invitation, so they'll get that. But guys, thank you so much. We will see you again next week. It will also be at 3 in the afternoon. Stay safe, stay warm, and we will see you then.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Daphna. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.